The sun had barely risen over the horizon when the small fishing boat left the quiet harbor. The sea was calm that morning, almost too calm, as if it were hiding something beneath its endless blue surface. The fisherman, a man who had spent most of his life on the ocean, adjusted his worn hat and looked out at the open water. For him, the sea was not just a workplace. It was a companion, a teacher, and sometimes a silent enemy. He had sailed these waters countless times before. Every wave, every current, every distant cloud felt familiar. The air smelled of salt and freedom, and the sound of gulls echoed faintly as the shore slowly disappeared behind him. Days like this were usually simple. Cast the nets, wait patiently, return home before the sky turned orange with sunset. But the ocean has a way of changing everything without warning. Hours passed as the boat drifted farther from land. The fisherman focused on his work, pulling in nets and checking lines, unaware that far beyond the horizon a storm was forming. At first, it was only a shift in the wind, barely noticeable. Then the clouds thickened, dark and heavy, swallowing the sunlight. By the time he realized what was happening, it was already too late. The waves began to rise, slow at first, then violently. The boat rocked as the wind screamed across the water. Rain crashed down like needles from the sky, blinding him as he struggled to keep control of the small vessel. Lightning split the darkness, revealing enormous walls of water surrounding him. In the chaos, a single massive wave struck the side of the boat. The impact was devastating. Equipment slid across the deck, ropes snapped, and one of the engine components was damaged beyond repair. The motor coughed once, then died. Suddenly, there was only silence. The storm continued to rage, but the boat had become nothing more than a fragile piece of wood drifting in a violent ocean. The fisherman tried desperately to restart the engine, pulling cables and checking the fuel line, but nothing worked. Each attempt ended with the same crushing realization. He was stranded. Night fell slowly, bringing with it a darkness deeper than anything he had ever experienced. The horizon disappeared completely, leaving him alone in a world of black water and distant thunder. Every creak of the boat sounded louder in the silence. Every splash against the hull felt like a warning. The first night was the hardest. Fear crept into his thoughts like a slow poison. He imagined the endless miles of water around him, the cold depths below the boat, the possibility that no one would ever find him. Sleep came only in short, restless moments. When morning finally arrived, the storm had vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. The sea looked peaceful again, but the fisherman knew the truth. Peace on the ocean could be an illusion. Days turned into a routine of survival. He rationed the small amount of food he had left on the boat and collected rainwater whenever clouds passed overhead. The sun burned his skin during the day, and the cold wind chilled him during the night. Every sunrise felt both like hope and a cruel reminder that he was still drifting. Sometimes dolphins appeared beside the boat, gliding effortlessly through the water. For a few moments, their presence brought him comfort. It felt as if the ocean itself had sent companions to remind him that he was not completely alone. But most of the time, there was only silence. Weeks passed. The fisherman began to lose track of time. His beard grew long and wild, his skin darkened under the relentless sun, and his body weakened from exhaustion. Yet something inside him refused to break. Each day, he woke up with the same determination. Survive one more day. The ocean tested him constantly. Once, a violent storm nearly flipped the boat. Another time, sharks circled beneath the surface for hours, their dark shadows moving slowly under the drifting vessel. Still, he endured. One night, as he stared up at the stars scattered across the endless sky, he realized something strange. The fear that once consumed him had begun to fade. The ocean was no longer just a threat. It had become part of him. He learned to read the winds again. He watched the movement of clouds, studied the rhythm of waves, and followed the path of birds that sometimes flew overhead. Every small sign became a clue that might guide him closer to land. Hope returned slowly. Then one morning, something appeared on the horizon. At first, he thought it was just another illusion, created by exhaustion. His eyes had played tricks on him before, but this time the shape grew larger. A ship. His heart pounded as he stood up, waving his arms wildly. He shouted until his voice cracked, though he knew the distance was still great. The vessel moved slowly across the horizon, unaware of the tiny drifting boat in the vast ocean. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like it would pass by. Then suddenly, the ship changed direction. Someone had seen him. Relief flooded through his body so quickly that his legs nearly gave out beneath him. After endless days and nights lost in the ocean, help had finally arrived. The massive ship approached carefully, and voices echoed across the water as sailors called out to the lone fisherman. As they pulled him aboard, he looked back at the small boat that had carried him through the longest journey of his life. The ocean stretched endlessly behind him, calm and silent once again. But he knew something that few people on land could ever truly understand. Out there, in the middle of the endless sea, survival is not just about strength. It is about patience. It is about hope. And sometimes, it is about learning to listen to the quiet language of the ocean itself.